5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Full course yellow is deployed. Full course yellow is deployed.
Yes, hello everybody, and welcome to Full Course Yellow for 2025. We're back again on a new night, Tuesday night. So you sort of come in a bit early, and because we're not doing in pit lane in the studio on that night this year, so we can get in a bit early and be a bit more up to date and tell you about all the things that happened on the weekend. Joining us on the program tonight, as you can see alongside of me, is Peter Johnson, our in pit lane resident Formula One tragic and recovering from 24 hours of Daytona all the way up in Queensland, is Mark Jones as well. G'day guys, how are we?
How are you, Brett?
I'm good,
Mark,
thanks.
how are you?
Yes, Mark, can we hear you?
I'm sensational. How are you, fine gentlemen?
Well, I don't know about fine. Yeah, I don't know about fine gentlemen, but it's good to see everybody again there alongside because we've had a considerable break over the past few weeks, which is very nice. So I hope you've had a good break as well. But yes, we're ready to kick off with another season of motorsport. And all of its very forms coming up this week, of course, the Bathurst 12 hours. I'll be heading up there on Thursday, first thing Thursday morning, and wandering around and having a look at the now 22 cars that are going to be lined up at there. So we'll have more about that later. And as I referred to earlier in the as we opened the Daytona 24 hours on the weekend, and another amazing race. Great coverage again by IMSA TV. They're doing a great job on their YouTube, and very, very popular. One of the over 2 million views for the Daytona 24 on YouTube as well. So so fabulous stuff. Yeah, so it was very good. But let's talk about Formula One first, because apparently, if you read some of the tabloids and some of the websites and the podcasts in Europe at the moment, Jack Doohan's Formula One career is over before it starts. It's finished. It's gone. Franco Colopinto is replacing him, and it's all doom and gloom. And Pete, I mean, is that? I mean, are we going to see Jack racing XLs with Richard this year, or what's going to happen?
I think he'll be all right. I think what Alpine needs to do is they need to have a bit of stability, because they've had a bit of instability over the last few years. So they need to just stick to their guns and persevere. In the last Grand Prix, him and Pierre Gasly were, sort of 14th or 15th, I think. But anyway, they were one or two places apart. And I think as long as he consistently gets points, if Pierre Gasly is getting points, as long as he does too, he'll be all right. And as long as he finishes and doesn't crash the car consistently, he'll be all right. I think there's a little bit of a dynamic that's going on between Oliver Oakes and Flavio Briatore, similar to the dynamic that often happens at Red Bull with Christian Horner and Helmut Marko, in that one's flying kites and the other one's is the stabilising force. He's sort of saying it's all right. We'll persevere.
Yeah, it is. It's like a sort of a parallel universe thing between Red Bull and Alpine at the moment. You've got Helmut Marko on one side and Flavio Briatore on the other side. You've got Christian Horner and Oliver Oakes. They're sort of mirroring each other in many ways, in the way that their roles are playing out. You've got the crusty old nutter, not old guy, and you've got the more seasoned professional who's actually running the show. So, Mark, I mean, it's an interesting move. I mean, to get Colopinto, I don't think it's a good move. I mean, he obviously showed that he's got a bit of talent, but at the same time, he started out like, it was a bit like Sam Costas in the cricket. He started out like a house on fire, and everyone went, he's going to be the next big thing. And we've had basically one innings from young Sam at this stage, and now it looks like he probably won't play the first test in Sri Lanka in a couple of days' time. So Franco probably crashed a bit today. And I think that's what Pete said. As long as he doesn't crash, that's going to be the main thing because let's face it, crashing is expensive.
Yeah, and
And it was the very last thing that Williams needed in the season last year. So that so whatever context you have for Colopinto at Alpine, it has to be remembered that his third to a quarter of a season at Williams was borderline reckless.
is yeah.
Yeah, I think that
So
that
I
was
think
part of the problem, and I think that's one of the reasons that they were, probably happy to sort of, farm him out, and because they've obviously they're set up for this year with their drivers. So if they can get a bit, and as Oliver Oak said, he said it's just looking at it really is just sort of looking at giving Alpine options in the future if something does happen with either Gasly or Jack. They do have some other options there as well as the other sort of young drivers that they've got.
and use and maybe this year use the FP1 sessions where you can put your reserve driver in to train him up and to temper his aggression, and then he'll be all right, I think. And then maybe look to the when Pierre Gasly is looking elsewhere or is leaving, maybe put him in.
Yeah.
Or if Audi comes a knocking.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, that's the other option too. We don't know what's happening with Audi. It's interesting. I mean, you can see that like companies like Ford, Ford on the way in, they're already starting to ramp up their marketing, their Formula One marketing. If you go onto the Ford Performance YouTube channel, they've got a documentary on Max Verstappen and basically saying and soon he'll be driving for Ford. So they're already
but even
sort of
that's
got
not guaranteed.
no, it doesn't. It doesn't
Yeah,
seem to be, and they're also talking about. They're increasingly talking about that they'll join sort of the GTP hypercar ranks in sports cars as well. That's looking like almost a done deal now. There's certainly people like Graham Goodwin from Daily Sports Car and John Hindhaugh from Radio Le Mans Radio Show Limited, John DeGeese from Sports Car 365. They're all sort of saying that that no, it's just a matter of when they announce it. And some people are saying it might be as soon as Sebring in about a month's time or so.
Well, they are well set up for that. Of course, they have this long-standing relationship with Multimatic in the United States, and Multimatic are involved in GDP already. So there's certainly it's a shall we say an easier pathway for into the WEC and into IMSA GTP than it is to Formula One. But then again, only Formula One's Formula One. It's an enormous challenge at every level. But no, certainly that's getting a LMP program up and running for Ford would be cheaper for them than it is for a lot of manufacturers to do. Although cheap is maybe not the right word for it.
Well,
But
everything's sort of relative, isn't it? I mean,
oh yeah,
that's one of the things that Hyundai are saying with the Genesis thing. They're saying, look, we're doing this because it economically makes sense. Porsche said the same thing. I mean, their head of competition, I heard him heard him with an interview with John Hindhaugh saying that like this, he said that. These current GTP regulations, particularly like the IMSA versions of them.
LMDH.
The LMDH stuff, he said, is making makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense for us.
Yeah, no, they're and it's quite a nice setup for them as well, and and it's well balanced with the European based LMP program or LMH programs as well. Like the for those of you not aware, the IMSA LMDH style regulations, there are four base cars that you build up. You select one of them and then you build your hypercar around that. Whereas if you want to buy, if you want to build your hypercar from first principles, then the LMH regs that run in Europe and behind the World Championship is friendly for that concept as well. But there is that shortcut, if you like. Like you'll notice, for example, that the Acura and I think the Alpine look quite similar, and there's good reason for that. They both have the same underlying chassis underneath their race cars, and they've just then built them up slightly differently, and that's occurred a couple of times in already. But but it also provides that having the base chassis underneath, you can then still make the cars look substantially different, and the cars follow the hypercar regulations mean not only the design language of the car, like the look of the car, is can reflect your road car properties, like Porsche 963 looks like the history of, you can see the style in connection there between the history of all of the 911 and related racing cars that have connected to that over many decades. You see the Lamborghini SC63 has that harsher angular style that is so typical of Lamborghini. And each of the cars have that, Peugeot is the quintessentially doing it differently thing that the French love to do.
But of course.
So yeah, it's but you can also then the technical regulations, how you get power from the car to the ground to propel the race cars along is as individual as the styling. And that's not dependent on the chassis either. So it's an it's enormously complicated, the rules behind it, but it's also enormously flexible, and the manufacturers across the board love that.
Also, it looks like we're also getting. I mean, the other one that's been talked about for a long time now is, of course, McLaren coming back as well, and that's also been more, pretty much set in stone. That Jack Brown is sort of saying the same sort of thing. Look, at some stage it's probably going to happen. It's just a matter of when it makes sense for us, when it makes sense in terms of like the effect that it might have on the Formula One team and the IndyCar team and all the other stuff that they do. But he's saying that they will certainly be back as well. So it is a golden era of sports cars coming up, unless of course well, depending on which way you look at it, unless of course you're running at Mount Panorama at Bathurst on the weekend. We are now down to 22 cars, starting out after the withdrawal of a team today. The team 111 pulled out because because the sponsor has basically let them down. Gee, how many times have we heard that story? Including us on In Pit Lane. My God, it's part of the deal, unfortunately, and so they're out of action. So there's 22 cars. But the quality is amazing in terms of drivers and the teams that are up there at the top level. There's no problem at all. But it's unfortunately it's sort of the level below. It's the pro-am, the amateurs, the locals. And I spoke to a GT4 team late last year about it, and the attitude seems to be from a lot of the locals is, well, we can't win it outright. All these big money teams come over with their big money drivers and their big money cars. We can't win. If we can't win, why should we bother? So,
well, yeah, and you're spending, you're not real. The cost of running a GT3 in the 12-hour isn't significantly. I mean, yeah, there is a difference between running a GT3 and a GT4 in terms of cost wise, but not as much as it makes a significant amount of difference. And then the result of that is you're running a GT4. You're never going to break the top 10. You're lucky to be. You might, with the smaller entry like this year, you might break the top 15, but you're not really going to get that much of a broadcast return. There's still plenty of GT3s for the cameras to highlight throughout the course of the weekend. I
I
suppose
tell you what,
not.
if I won Slotto a couple of weeks and won the sort of the 30 minutes, I'd be jumping in and buying a GT4 car really, really quickly and running it there, because you're almost guaranteed a podium, because I think there's only 3 cars entered in that category.
Well, yeah,
There's the two McLarens, and I think there's one other car, but there's
yeah.
virtually nobody there.
Yeah, Team 19, Mark Griffith's team up here in Queensland, is taking their AMG GT4 down. They've been a regular at the 12 hour for decades. Decades it seems. It, remembering it in the 1980s when Griffo was operated a Shell service station at Chermside and had a rally car out the back of it, and he has gone gangbusters over
Obviously
the.
done well for it. Obviously done well for himself. Incidentally, Jared, thank you very much for their Red Bull Ford powertrains may look at WEC. Yes, I think they. I'm pretty sure that they will. Very good to hear from you. I was just sort of looking around. We've got people watching, but we hadn't had any messages coming through, and we're on this new platform, which is a bit dodgy at the moment. Actually, it says that this was 2 minutes ago. You sent that through, so it's a bit slower than the old platform that we were on. So if you're out there and you're watching us and you've got any questions or like to make any contribution to the show, just go on either on the Facebook page or on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel and pop that up, and hopefully that'll come through and we can have a chat with you.
Just with the Bathurst 12 hour, if I don't want the powers that be to react quickly to that complaint that we can't win it, so we're not going up there. I don't want the powers that be to react quickly and just have it like it's just all the same class of car, because I'm going to sound like a dinosaur, but I quite enjoyed the Bathurst 1000 when it had the different classes and you were overtaking different cars, and I quite enjoy that about the 12 hour.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I mean, class racing, as we saw on the weekend at Daytona, and as we've seen, like with things like the Nürburgring 24-hour in particular, the Creventic series and all the rest, the class racing does definitely add something to it. Unfortunately, like I said, like a lot of the classes, and obviously it's expensive too. And I think one of the things that I'll be looking at, if I can catch up with a few people over the weekend, is to try and find out exactly, what are the costs for a smaller team in terms of, like how much they are sort of, having to shell out for the weekend. Because I've had a few teams who say basically, look, we've got a choice. We can run the Australian GT Championship or the GT4 Series, or we can run the Bathurst 12 hours. We can't do both. So,
Yeah, because the 12 hour, you're putting more racing life into your car than the entire championship does. You're not going to get 12 hours of it's just popping into my head. Hang on, they do longer races, of course, in the GT Championship, and they tend to be an hour race. So I suppose, you're 12 rounds over the course of the year. It does add up to 12. Generally, though, the old argument from that's in my head, because the old argument from production car racing, when the 12 hour was a production car race, and the 12-hour race was significantly more than the production car championship. So that's a little bit of archaic knowledge, archaic colouring my opinion there. So apologies for that.
Jared also saying about Mustang and Corvette likely in 26. It's interesting that Ford, said, we really did want a car. We looked at, we wanted a Mustang, and of course they did such a fabulous job at Daytona. They came up and got the win in GTD Pro. So that was good. That was good news for them then. And I know they said, straight away when they announced the GT3 program on the night they launched it, it was one of the things that was said was, we want to race at Bathurst. And I really, really did expect that there would at least be one car up there, and apparently it got close, but for whatever reason, it just didn't. It just didn't eventuate. And certainly, I would imagine you'd have to think that with the connections between the new head of sports car competition in Jess Dane and Triple Eight Racing, that something's got to happen there surely, like for next year for a Corvette. So you'd have to say next year is a definite.
Yeah, and SVG's had a bit of a warm up in a Corvette GT3 now. And maybe he'll bring Scotty Mack back with him as well.
Well, that's why I was sort of, like when they made the announcement, I thought, well, I wonder if this is almost like, and whether the next part of the of the announcement is going to be, oh, and by the way, the drivers will be jumping on the plane with the rest of the drivers. Now, unfortunately for a lot of people, this year is like last year. The dates had changed, and Bathurst was later on in the month, later on in February. So there was a bit of a gap between Daytona, and now they've gone back to that 1 week gap. So it must be an absolute nightmare because a lot of the drivers were saying, well, they finished a 24-hour race. They went straight to the airport in Florida, of all places, which is the hardest place to get to. From Australia, you couldn't get much further away from Australia than Florida, and they've got to go all the way across the United States, and they've got to and then all the way across the Pacific until they get down here, and I think sort of some of the drivers are arriving on. I'm not leaving until Thursday, sort of around sort of mid morning, and I'm probably still going to get to Bathurst, sooner than a lot of the drivers are going. The international drivers are going to get there because, boy, it's a long trip. Don't think I couldn't do it.
I guess you've just got to be practiced that kind of thing. The life of the professional or semi-professional racing driver, and your gentlemanly amateur drivers within the GT3 circus as well. Of course, they spend a lot of time on planes, as it is. It's part and parcel of the world they're in.
Well, some of them own the planes as well too, and I know I know that's one of the things. That there's quite a few of the planes drivers that are coming down, particularly at the top end. Are coming down in with chartered flights. So that'll make things a little bit more comfortable for them. I just know that I've got a 4-hour train ride from Central in Sydney up to Bathurst on late Thursday afternoon. I'm not getting in until fairly late at night, but it's the cheapest way of getting up there. So that's what I'll be doing, and I will be over the course of the weekend. Keep watching on the In Pit Lane Facebook page. We'll be doing whatever I can do live. Can't do anything live from the track. That's very much verboten. But at each night I'll be trying to get something up, sort of wrapping up the day and talking about some of the things that some of the people I've been talking to, and what's going on behind the scenes, and also with the support races for what there is of them. Really good field for the combined sedans and sports cars this year as well, because we've got some of the older GT3 cars, some of the older Audis and Ferraris and Porsches joining the sports sedans and improved production cars in the combined sedan. So it's a really, really big field. So there's no shortage of cars there. We still don't seem to know who, if anybody, is coming for this Ferrari challenge thing. I'm sure there'll be cars there, but they're saying nothing about it. I've seen no entry list anywhere for it. And I suppose we'll know when we get there. But that's in terms of support races, that's it.
And supercars testing.
Oh yes, how could I forget?
I mean, that's a draw of its own. People love to see the supercars go around, and of course they sound fantastic. They are Australia's premier motorsport category, so they're Yeah,
But
Yeah,
it'll be
there's
fantastic.
going to be two of them running around testing. It's going to be like,
No, not more than that.
wow.
um, and I've watched Formula One testing, and I got bored with it very quickly.
Yeah, and that's Formula One. As Jared saying, yeah, perhaps it was the $1 million in crankshafts blew the budget. So yeah,
Mm.
they're certainly not cheap. I think that's part of the problem. I think that's one of the things that a few people have been saying about GT3, and even Stefan Rattel. The last time I spoke with him when he was down at Phillip Island, I interviewed him. He was sort of getting worried that like this
Oh,
had this had become sort of a lot more expensive than they ever sort of envisaged that they were. And especially this, he was worried because this was like before they'd actually sort of gone to Le Mans and joined the World Endurance Championship. He was really he said, look, he said, I'm concerned that this is going to become these cars are going to become so sophisticated and so expensive that it's basically going to sort of lock out our main audience, our main sort of uh, constituents, which are basically amateur drivers, the gentleman drivers, who have got some good money, but they don't have they may not have they might have $1 million to spend on a race car. They may not have $2 million to spend on a race car.
there is actually an entry list for the Ferrari Challenge floating around now. There's 16 cars on it with 15 drivers named. It looks like there's a lot of international entries. Uh, Mind you, quite a few of them are being fielded by Zagami, so combination of international drivers with the local run race team. In fact, it looks like that the cars are being fielded by just two teams, just Zagami and MC Corsa. Jim Pollicina is the name that jumps out as a driver that's familiar. There's a couple of other drivers in there that. But it looks as though that a lot of the drivers have come from Ferrari Challenge Asia.
Which means we could, the first practice session could be really, really interesting. If you want to see, if you want to see smashed up Ferraris, this could be the place to go.
Yeah, there will
But
be. There's quite a few rookies on that list there. That's certainly more than half having their first trips to Bathurst.
Yeah, we
but
know
sadly,
even from experience, people, how tough that is.
but sadly, the coverage starts on KO after the Ferrari first practice sessions, and also um, it starts at 3 o'clock on Seven Mate
Yeah,
on
they've cut back.
Saturday.
They've cut back big time on the coverage, but they are covering the Friday sessions and the support races on the YouTube channel on the
Okay.
Bathurst 12-hour YouTube channel. So basically, they'll run up until the KO feed
Yep.
starts. They will be there. Jared's saying like the Mark IRC and GT should be in the. There are a few Mark cars in the combined race, I think. But
Yes,
they're
there is. I'm
more,
looking them
yeah.
up now. There's of the Mark cars. John Hollinger's running an IRC, which is, I guess,
The new one.
the
Yep.
third generation Mark, sort of. Keith Kasulki's running his Mark II. Mason Kelly's running a Mark One.
Oh,
Yeah, so
Uh,
they're of
Stephen
course going to
Lacey is running his sports
the
sedan
sports sedan.
version,
Yeah, yeah, it's
which
a
is
lovely car. That.
Jeff Taunton's green GT sports sedan, of course. That has been such a ridiculously fantastic race car at the combined sedan the last couple of seasons. And Chase Hoy also running a Ford Focus bodied Mark One.
Yeah, so as I said, there is a bit of variety in that particular category as well, and I'm sure they'll put on a good race. So we'll look forward to seeing what's running around there. The Mark sports car and all the IRC GT guys all are going to have their own series. We spoke with the guys last year, and they said then that they were trying to get their own series up and running, and they were talking to people at Motorsport Australia, but also to AASA, and it turns out they will be running on AASA, and what's come out in the last couple of days, and it's a bit of a strange mixture, but they'll also be running with the classic touring cars, that the supercars that Derek Hocking's been trying desperately to get up for the last year or so.
Yeah,
For some of the,
the series that was once called V8 touring cars for older supercars.
yeah,
Ran for quite a long time on the old Shannon's Nationals program before it was folded into Super 3 a couple of years ago. And of course, Super 3 doesn't run anymore now. Mind you, the regulations for included vehicles in Super 3 had pushed those older supercars out of the Super 3 series. So they were looking for a new home anyway. Yeah, so that's fantastic to see that the that V8 touring cars have found a home, and that they'll will be able. Certainly, we hope there's an opportunity for them to rebuild and progress. Certainly, we're seeing a couple more older supercars coming out. When we saw at the end of last year, when the earliest model of supercars were included into heritage touring cars. Like the first 4 years worth of supercars were allowed to be included into heritage touring cars, and a lot of those were cars that haven't raced in a long time, like they weren't from the V8 touring car pool. So there's an opportunity then for those guys to run in the V8 touring car field as well. So yeah, you got a VP, VS, or an AU, or a is it AU? No, it's the
Which
heritage
one?
touring cars are up to AU, like
Okay.
EBs and EFs, and I think maybe ELs. I would have to confirm that, but yeah, not AUs. So but yeah, those cars that have come out to join Heritage Touring Cars, that's an option for them to get extra race miles if they want to as well, running with their touring cars.
yeah. The Dick Johnson the EBs are available. They John Bowles then. Bow, if you happen to be watching, I hope you're feeling a bit better. I think John did. Last year I fell over just before Bathurst, and now this year John's fallen over, or something's gone wrong with his hip. Got there, although he did get back. He was in hospital, I think, just overnight or very briefly for a bit of an assessment, but thankfully nothing broken. So he was back. He went to Canberra for the Festival of Speed up there, which is yet another event. And speaking of such events, Adelaide just around the corner. Valtteri Bottas has announced that he's going to drive a Mercedes at Adelaide. He was very popular there last year and certainly enjoyed himself. So that's looking like a really big event. But unfortunately, it has had a really big effect on Phillip Island and the Phillip Island Classic. A lot of those cars that normally would have come, and drivers that normally would have come out for that. And the Grand Prix are not coming to Phillip Island. There's still a few interesting cars, no doubt, at Phillip Island, but at the moment nothing of sort of earth-shattering nature has been announced for that. Usually they've got a couple of Formula One cars and a couple of Le Mans cars and things that they can sort of hang their hat on, but they don't have it. They unfortunately don't have it this year because they're all over at Adelaide, and on that same weekend, of course, a lot of the drivers will be up in Sydney, running around in some made-for-television confection.
Oh yeah, that thing. Yeah.
So
I mean,
yeah,
it's of course the Race of Champions creation of run by the goddess of motorsport, Michelle Mouton, for so many years, and yeah. it's built up its own identity over the course of that time. It spent a lot of time on. What was it? Not the Azores. Was it the Azores they ran in the Spanish
Yeah,
island, the Atlantic Ocean? But now now it's a bit
they've
of a
run a few
touring sport.
places. Yeah. Yeah, so they're moving it around, sort of, like some moving targets. So, and
Stade
they've
de France a
convinced.
couple of years ago, I think.
Yes, yeah, they've done. They ran that. I think they ran it in somewhere in Monaco as well. They've run it in a few places, and it was always, it's entertaining. But I don't think that it's. I don't think I'd be sort of racing to pay money. I'm not certainly not thinking of I must head up to Sydney that weekend because the Race of Champions is on up there. I'm sure it'll be interesting. I think it has got free to air television from memory. I think I read somewhere that it might be on
Does.
Seven or something.
Yes, I think it is.
But 7 or 10, it might be 10 actually. Now they come to think of it. Incidentally, the landscape for motorsport and for all sport in Australia is going to change very very rapidly. We know that Foxtel sold out to the international company DANZ. And we've already seen Foxtel announced. Crikey had an exclusive yesterday, which said that for people in isolated and remote areas around Australia, they're going to take away their access to both binge and KO, and basically it says if you want to keep watching your sport, if you want to keep watching, you need to buy the whole package now. You need to come over to Foxtel and get the whole Foxtel package. We're not going to let out for the streaming services separately anymore. And I think that might be, and they're doing the same sort of thing right around the world now. A lot of the companies in America and in Europe now are just are sort of winding back and putting things and saying, hey, like you're paying $20 a month for one channel now, but guess what? If you pay $35 a month, we'll give you 5 channels. You won't watch 4 of them, but you'll pay us an extra $15 a month. So but if you ever want the knitting channel is there.
There's a knitting channel? Oh, I've got to get onto that.
Knit one, pearl one. That's it. Anyway,
I still say that the slow TV that they have, like sometimes they'll put a camera on top of a train
yeah.
and run that for 12 hours. I think just a commentary free in a 24-hour race mounted on a race car, just commentary free, just the noise of the car, and maybe
Well, of
with
course
some
we of
stats that
course have
pop up.
that. We have that on YouTube. I mean, there's in-car feeds from a lot of the cars, and if you want to, like for some of the WEC rounds, if you don't
Oh
want to
yes.
pay for the extra, I mean, you just sort of look around and there'll be sort of in-car camera from one of the Porsches, one of the Toyotas, whatever, one of the GT3 cars. You can just flicking between a few of those and some live timing, you can actually get quite a good representation of what's happening in the race, and and as you say,
This
you don't get all of the commentary and all the rest. You just get the the sound of the cars. So it's great.
And that's big on the in the NLS as well. The at the Nurburgring Endurance Series, they do that a lot as well.
Yes, yeah. So it's interesting that that's coming up. Okay, well, we got anything else? Oh yes, we better talk about Daytona just quickly because it was once again a fabulous race. I know you watched a lot of it. I dipped in and out of it as sort of as much as I could. I didn't see the end of the race. I was sort of I had it on. I had the commentary on in the background as I went to bed, and I thought, I might wake up in time for the finish, but I didn't. So
Oh,
yeah.
what a it, we had a bit of a grandstand finish for the race there. They had both the factory Penske Porsches running up the front with our own Matt Campbell leading the number 6 car, of course, and fighting against one of the Acuras, which was being led by Tom Blomqvist as one of the I'm having a memory fail, but I'm pretty sure number 60 is one of the Wayne Taylor cars. And the other car that was in the fight was the number 24 BMW. And of the four of them, the BMW was the fastest with, I think it was Dries Vanthoor. Lawrence is the Lawrence Vanthoor is the Porsche racer. So yeah, Dries Vanthoor, I think, was the guy who was in the car at the back end of the race, and he ran into the back of Matt Campbell's Porsche. Right in the mix of it, and when they were fighting for the win, and that broke the nose of the BMW and put them a lap down. So it then became the two Porsches versus the Acura, and yeah, it was Matt Campbell versus Felipe Nasser versus Tom Blomqvist in the Acura. And Matt was leading with 30 minutes to go, but Nasser was on a bit of a tear, got past Matt with a really brave pass through the Le Mans chicane on the back of the course, and then the Acura got past Matt as well. So Matt in the end came home third. But the NASA was able to stabilize the gap between himself and Tom Blomqvist.
Oops, I think we've lost. I think we might have lost Mark there. Unfortunately, he's dropped out. I think we might have lost Pete there as well. Have we? You still with us, Pete? There we go. He's back.
Honda guys.
We've got you back.
Oh, sorry,
you back, Mark. You dropped. You just froze for a second. I think we all froze actually.
But yeah, in the end, yeah, Nasser was Felipe Nasser in the number 7 Porsche was able to hold off Tom Blomqvist in the number 60 Acura, and Matt Campbell brought the number 6 Porsche home on the lead lap as well. So it was fantastic for Penske got 1-3, better result than what they had last year. And Nick Tandy, who was one of the drivers of the number 7 Porsche, completed a unique achievement in motorsport. The first driver to achieve the quadruple crown of 24-hour races, having won outright at Le Mans, Spa, Nürburgring, and now Daytona 24-hour races. He's the only driver to have ever done that. So yeah, congrats to everyone in the Penske Porsche.
Come a long way from his days. Come a long way from his days in stock car racing and local banger racing in England all those years ago. I mean, and he came back and he was really the prototype. When you have a look at it, I mean, there were people raised their eyes when he jumped into the LMP1 back then, because it was like he was coming out of a GT car, and it's like he doesn't have all of this, doesn't have all of the open wheel experience that you probably need, and he did so well. And now everybody, like Matt Campbell and a whole bunch of people, are just are not coming out of open wheels. There's still plenty who are, but there's a lot of people who are coming, basically working their way straight out of GT3 and coming into prototypes.
And there's fantastic results for the other Australian drivers in the field as well. I can't remember.
James Allen was second.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember which was which out of the. We had Aussies finish second and third in LMP2 class.
James was second. I think Garnet Patterson was third.
No, it wasn't Garnet. It was. James Allen was second, and Josh Burden was third.
Josh Burden, yeah, I keep forgetting. Josh has been racing over there for so long. I mean, I keep hearing his name, and you sort of think, hang on, he's an Australian. I remember, I mean, I'm sure he's. In fact, in the early days, I'm sure we had him on the show at some stage. But I mean, he spent such a long time over there. This is a great thing now about sports car racing, and we're increasingly seeing it with people like Jalen Rowbottom and all those sort of people who are heading off and doing a lot of international races now. So there is an alternative to supercars. If you want to be a professional racing driver, and there's limits to what you can do here. You've got sort of a growing scene in Asia, a hugely growing scene in the Middle East, right throughout Europe, and of course North America as well. So you can make yourself a good little career out of it if you're successful, and they've been a lot of them have been very, very successful.
Of course, we more associated Josh Burden in the past with the GT3 class rather than LMP2. So there's that bit of a difference. Tom Sargent as well came home second in GTD class, the lower of the two GT3 spec classes in the field. He was in the Wright Motorsports Porsche, co-driving with Archon Guven, who's the reigning Bathurst 12-hour champion amongst other achievements. And of course, plenty of interest in our two supercar champions, Scott McLaughlin and Shane Van Gisbergen, in the Trackhouse / TF Sport Run Chevy Corvette. They came home ninth in class, but they were on right up to the end of almost to the end of the race. They were on the lead lap. They were in the mix till not even. They were still on the lead lap with half an hour to go, so they only fell off the lead lap in the race for GTD Pro in the last quarter an hour.
As Jared was put up there as well, I mean, there was also some controversy with BMW and GM with the blocking, because BMW basically they said to one of their slower cars, like don't let the Corvette past.
It was the teammate car, of Paul Miller Racing, who ran the 1 car and the 48 car, and the 48 car had fallen off the lead lap, and was able to. But then again, there was there was a second and then a third incident later on in the race as well. Like at one point, the number one BMW was had a little bit of a spin at turn 1, and you could probably say it was assisted by one of the yellow bow tie cars, and certainly there was no love lost between them. The pit lane interviews with the drivers for the two cars were just fascinating, and it was a very, very NASCAR feel to it, and of course with NASCAR kicking off there in only a few hours' time, it seems now.
Speaking of NASCAR, did we see the chaos in the Mazda MX-5 race?
Oh, wow. Yeah, both races had their own kinds of chaos. The first race just got later and later and later in the day, and was kind of run in the dark, and actually ran pretty well in the dark. But then the second race that was held in the brightness of the day, the next day, the cars they came up to the start line for the rolling start to kick off, and the cars that were second and third on the grid got together and bounced off the wall and bounced back in front of everybody else. And I think 15 cars were scratched before the race had gone 5 meters.
Yeah, it is on YouTube. If you haven't seen it, if you want to go and have a look. Congratulations to IMSA with their YouTube channel. So this is why sort of YouTube, people just keep forgetting that YouTube is the world's #1 streaming service now. It's not Netflix, it's not Disney Plus, it is YouTube, and it's not even close. And IMSA have been like SRO and like a couple of others, like Goodwood and a few others. The N24 series, they've come to their senses, and they've gone, hey, we want this to be seen by as many people as possible, and if they want to do that, you put it on YouTube, and it's paid off in spades, because they had over 2 million 2 million views, and some people are saying, "Oh, yeah, but if you have a look at the concurrent views, it was only sort of 185,000 or something," and that's the way it works. Concurrent views are never a good sort of guide, because that's not the way people watch stuff now. I imagine there'd be lots of people around the world, people like me, for instance, who just didn't have the time to sit there and watch pretty much any of the racing during the time. I had other things on the weekend, and over the course of the next couple of days, I've watched bits, and I've grabbed an hour here and an hour there, of the race. So I haven't seen the lot of it yet, but that's probably something that'll be done on the 4 hour train trip to Bathurst.
And there was so much of it was so good to watch. We had some brilliant battles across. It came down to Porsche, Acura, and Honda, Porsche, Acura, and BMW at the end of the race. But most of the other LMDH cars were in the running. I mean, the Lamborghini was the first car out of the race out of anybody, but all of the other LMDHs, all the Cadillacs were right amongst the fight for such a long time. The other Acuras, the other BMW, the two privateer Porsches were amongst it. It was. It was a sensational race, and it was the same in all four classes. With half an hour to go, or like I remember typing it up on Facebook at the time. With an hour to go, there were still 10 cars fighting over the win in GTD, 9 cars fighting over the win in GTD Pro, 7 cars fighting over the win in LMP2, and with an hour to go, there was still, I think, 6 of the LMPs running, the GTPs running at the top of the field, going for the win. It was a fabulous race to watch. There was 24 hours long, of course, but there was. I found it difficult to put down. It was exhaustion that caused me, and involuntary sleep that caused me to miss chunks of the race.
It's amazing how quick it goes. I think this is about Le Mans every year. I sit there and get the and it's like you start off and you get into sort of the first couple of hours and you think, oh, this is a long way to go, and suddenly you think, oh, hang on, there's only 4 hours left in the race, and oh my God, it's the time's gone like that. But anyway, hopefully with the 12 hours will go quickly like that. As I said, only 22 cars at Bathurst on the weekend, but it is going to be an interesting weekend. And as I said, I will be up there with. I'm travelling light because Doc's not going up. Doc's doing the bike racing down at Geelong. That's why he's not with us tonight. So he's down at the Cadell Evans bike race doing some work
Yes,
down there,
yeah.
and so he's not coming up. So I've got no one sort of to take up all the heavy gear this year. So I'm going to I'm travelling light. I'm going to try and I'm shooting like the vloggers do. I'm going to shoot on the phone. I actually did that at. Actually, did it out at the car show out at the Sanford Hotel on New Year's Day or New Year's Eve, and it came out. The footage was great. There was no problems. There was no problems at all. So in fact, it's probably in many respects it's better than the camera because it's 4K. I mean, our cameras aren't 4K, but my phone is. So and we're not allowed to. We can't shoot anything on track anyway, so we don't need to do that. So for what I'm using it for, which is going to be sort of paddock and interviews and a bit of spectator atmosphere and people up in the campsite getting drunk and me down in the pits getting drunk or whatever. We'll run that. So as I said, we'll try and be doing certainly from Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We'll try and do some updates. Some after race updates on the In Pit Lane Facebook page. So anything live we'll put onto. Well, that's sort of the formula we're going to be sort of doing this year from the track is live sort of quick things we're going to do on the Facebook page, and then more substantial stuff we'll put onto the In Pit Lane YouTube channel. The one thing I haven't done yet is I haven't edited on the iPhone. I did a little bit. It's you can do it, but it's not easy. But we'll see how we go anyway. Okay, thanks guys for joining us.
One more thing, just backtracking to Triple One Racing. Unfortunately, not running at the 12-hour, but it does need to be highlighted that they had a pair of second places at the in the two big enduros they were over in the Emirates just 2 and 3 weeks ago. Second in class, that is, in the Dubai 24-hour, and then the Abu Dhabi 6-hour, which gave them also the championship in the invitation class.
And
running
that's part
against
of
some
that is part of the
real.
problem for Bathurst as well. I mean, you've had two sort of long distance Creventic events, the 24-hour and a 6-hour. You know, the last 2 weeks. You had the first 2 weeks. Then you had Daytona last weekend, and then next weekend, of course, it's back to the Middle East and the Asian Le Mans series. Straight after that, we're into the prelude for the prologue for the World Endurance Championship, then the World Endurance Championship, then Sebring. Yeah, very busy calendar. Hey everybody, we'll see you next week. Thanks for those people who did join us tonight. It was no new night and all the rest. Is going to take a bit of getting used to. Tell your friends if you're into motorsport and you want to join us for a chat every Tuesday night at 8:30. That's our new night for Full Course Yellow. At least for the foreseeable future. Could as they say in the classics, card subject to change. There's some other potential stuff that. Perhaps Pete and I might be a bit busy, with later on in the year, but we don't know that yet. But that's all being confirmed over the next couple of days. Don't get too excited; it's got nothing to do with motorsport. But yeah, but if you like your music, yeah, be watching. Okay, everybody, we will see you. We'll see you next week. Remember, if you haven't done so yet, please like and subscribe and click the notification bell on the YouTube channel. That way, when we do go live for anything at all, you'll get the notification. It's not like we're going live every day or anything. You'll get perhaps once or twice every couple of weeks. You will get sort of like In Pit Lane is going live, and you'll know. And then you can choose. You can say, yeah, I've got other things to do, or you can say, oh, I wonder what these idiots are talking about. So you can join us then. So thank you, Jared, for your contributions. I got to find out. There's some strange things going on with this new platform, and also with social media in general. We live in, as they say as the Chinese will say, may you live in interesting times. Well, boy, are we living in interesting times. Okay, everybody, we'll see you. We'll see you same time next week, and I hope to see you at Bathurst. If you're going up to Bathurst, you see me wandering around, waving my phone around. I know it looks a bit naff, but come up and say hi anyway. Okay, we'll see you. We'll see you next. We'll see you next week. Until then, from Pete and Mark and myself, thanks for joining us on Full Course Yellow. See you next week, Tuesday night. The new time, Tuesday night at 8:30. See you later, everybody.